And here we are, Friday, November 3rd, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 1 p.m. Pacific. One day I'll memorize it perfectly and always know the time zones. But we're here for another episode of Dualistic Unity Real with Jackie and Amanda. Today I will play the role of Amanda and my lovely companion, Jackie. How is your Friday going?
It's going. I mentioned earlier that I wasn't feeling too great this morning and still feeling uncomfortable. So there's that. I took a nap right now, just like a quick 30-minute nap before we came here. So that helped for sure. I've got my coffee here. And I called out of work for later. So feeling happy that I don't have to go do that after this. So just looking forward to seeing where this conversation goes, honestly.
Oh my goodness, today has been a whirlwind. I was trying to unsuccessfully uh, open Restream on Google Chrome because the last time I used Restream on Safari web browser, I was getting this like flapping bird noise in the background or something was happening during the last live. So I was like, oh, we're going to use Chrome. And it couldn't access the camera and it says it's allowed. And I'm like, help me help you, girl. I, I I said yes. You're saying you're still asking the question. I've already answered it. I don't know what more you want from me. And so we had to switch back to Safari just in time to start the live. And so I'm just laughing because it's been quite a pivot in just like the last 5 minutes of just straight up user error because I don't know what I do. Well, I don't know what I'm doing as always. But I'm so excited that this is not the first time we have chatted today, Jackie. We chatted earlier today on the DU sales meeting. Yeah, absolutely. And now we've got our second live exactly. Yes, yep, episode 2. And I don't know what we'll chat about, but having a goal isn't the priority. And so I am excited to be surprised with you.
Yeah, that's really the biggest lesson I'm learning with all of this is that I don't need to come in prepared because something will always be there when I go to open my mouth. Oh, words will just come flying out and I don't know where. But for some reason as long as I've tried, I've never been able to run out of shit to say. And maybe I just like to hear myself talk. That could be the case as well because I really am just here to talk for the shit for the fun of it. Like we're not here to give anyone some life-changing advice and like I don't need to ever put that pressure on myself at the same time to be insightful or to sound like super articulate or quote a bunch of books and sound really smart and that's just not the point ever. And so letting go of that is such a relief. And it is amazing that I can just pull up to the live stream like just woke up like 20 minutes ago, like nothing to say, feeling sick, feeling I got construction outside still, so we're still dealing with that and I'm just here and it's also good for me because I think I have avoided stepping into things until I felt that the conditions were ready. And I realized that that's just avoidance. It's just avoidance because there's never going to be a perfect time in your life where all the stars align and you're finally ready to go live. Like all you have to do to go live is start the live and start talking. And so that's what we're doing. And I realized also that over the last couple episodes that we've recorded, um, a lot of that anxiety and pressure has sort of dropped off. And I remember like last week when we were recording this episode, I was so like, it was wired. Like it felt like I had like 6 espresso shots and it just because it was new. And I felt like I wasn't making sense the whole time. And then I listened back to it and I was like, even when you were feeling like that, you were fine. And also, like, you don't know how this went. Like, you don't even have a clear perception of how you think it went. So there's no way I could ever begin to know or conceptualize the way that it went. So I think I just decided I'm not really going to do that anymore. It was nice to be like, okay, yeah, it wasn't obvious that I didn't know what to say. That's kind of good to know. But more than that, like, I don't need to keep hyper fixating on the little details of how I talk and freaking out about that. Um, so we have a question here. How do I do well in the future if I don't plan ahead? Amanda, you want to tackle this one first?
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? Um, so I focus, okay, so I can plan ahead, but I'm not attached to the plan because I know that I love the saying and it was the the best plan or the plan is perfect until this first thing goes wrong. Audio hell is back. I knew it. I fucking knew it was gonna happen. But maybe I am a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know, I could have not predicted that. Um, but I try not to attach to the plan because I know that there are things that I don't know. And so as much planning and as much research as I can do, there are some things I'm not going to be able to learn ahead of time, and so the plan is only as good until the first thing goes wrong. And if I'm attached to the plan going in a certain way, then I'll be upset if the plan doesn't go that way. But if I can just have a general direction that I'm going in, then I don't need things to be so black and white in terms of how I'm moving in that direction.
I completely forgot that you were answering your question at that point. I thought that was just where you decided to take the conversation. And yeah, so how do I do well in the future if I don't plan ahead? So I feel like this question is settling on a lot of certainties with almost not realizing it. Um, there's this idea of what well is. Like, are you doing well now? Can you say that for certain? And I feel like most of the time we can't. Like, the moment is just what it is. There are certain things that I guess are less ideal. There are some things that we enjoy in our life right now. But I think overall, our experience is pretty well balanced because we adjust to whatever environment we're sort of in at that time. So if you're looking forward to the future and expecting it to be some sort of magical promised land where you have no issues or struggles or challenges and everybody likes you and you're super rich and and you're so happy, um, that's frankly it's unrealistic. It's setting yourself up for disappointment in the future, um, and also fixating on that point in the future and being like, I can be happy, I can be okay with myself once I reach this level in my career, or if I have a family, or whatever it may be that you're trying to achieve in the future. If you're looking forward at that and and seeing that as being a better scenario than where you are right now, then you are creating a sense of lack and judgment in the present where otherwise there wouldn't be one. Otherwise, you just are where you are. And then if you want to think about it, you can and create lack for yourself in the present moment. But I just think it's not really something to focus on. I think a better point would be just focusing on the quality of each and every day, each and every step. And like Amanda was saying, like, you can't control the plan. Like, the plan is only good until one thing goes wrong. So you can choose a direction, but focusing and hyperfixating on an end point will sort of just it's like putting roadblocks in your own way. It's setting yourself up for disappointment when things inevitably don't turn out the way that you expect them to, because they're never going to.
Yeah, absolutely. It is assuming that you know what you're going to want in a year, in that future. You're, in the process of pursuing a college degree. For a real world example, I changed my degree countless times. And the degree that I ended up getting at the end, I didn't work in that industry for years. And it was just I'm glad that I don't feel bitter about that, because I really enjoyed the process of learning, of being in college, and so that helped with the not using the degree that I went to school for, that I told myself I was going to use, that I was going to need. And I'm really enjoying the work that I'm doing, which has nothing to do with the degree that I went for. So I'm like, am I going to judge the past choice to get that degree, even though we don't use it? We may not use it now, but what's to say in 10 years we're not in that industry specifically? It's you never really know how things are going to play out, and you never know how something you've done in the past is going to contribute to something you're going to do later. And so instead of, or I guess the option is, in you can focus on the future, you always can, but I think you also can focus on right now, and taking a look, paying attention to how you feel in this moment, doing whatever you're doing, because this moment is here right now. And let's say you are quote unquote happy or unhappy in the future, that really doesn't have anything to do with how you're feeling now, because you're living how you're feeling now. So as much as you can think about the future, consider that this step is more important than the path, because this step is what you're living, what you're experiencing now. And the path in 3 steps is secondary to the experience that you are in this moment. So I I still plan, I still make goals, but I don't attach to accomplishing that goal. And if I don't accomplish the goal, I don't criticize myself for changing my mind.
Yeah, when you were talking, Amanda, I was visualizing this. I've kind of been thinking about reality as like you're in a room, like you're in a theater, I guess. And it's like screens on all sides, and it's basically playing out your life. And maybe it's less of a screen and more of like a super dynamic like set of like a stage, and you are at the middle of it, and everything that's happening, that's playing out around you, you cannot control, but also you're always in that room, and you can't ever leave, no matter how much you think you want to be somewhere else, how much you want to think that you want a different scenario to be playing out in that scene. You can't change that. So it's the difference between paying attention to the show around you and appreciating it for what it is, or like being distracted the whole time, like having a bad attitude about it, telling yourself you hate this show and you want to be watching something else. And all of that energy is just wasted. It just creates suffering in the present when this is all you have. Like literally right now, the present moment is all that you have, and it shifts and changes. It goes in different directions, and there is influence that you can have, but you have to be present enough to notice those opportunities when they arise and be able to take advantage of them. But otherwise, you're just fighting against something that it's pointless to fight against, because there's nothing you can do about it. Like your life is your life. You are where you are right now, whether you like it or not. And as soon as you stop judging that and you're able to look at it for what it is, new opportunities arise. It's like first you have to surrender to what you can't control before you realize what you have influence over. And yeah, so like trying to control your life is the pointless struggle that I was the most addicted to for the last like 20 years. That was my favorite game, is to talk to myself constantly and beat myself up, or just being who and where and what I am. And so much already has shifted and transformed so easily once I recognize that I can't change this, and it's okay to just relax into it. It's okay to settle into whatever this is, and not judge it so hard, and try and enjoy it, because really it is just right now. And I think a lot of people go their whole lives wanting to be somewhere else, that they're never really here, but they are, but they're just not present. They're just caught up in their narrative, and in that state it's so hard to see other people. It's hard to like genuinely connect with other people and with the world around you, and to yeah, just have that empathy. It's really hard when you're caught up in your narrative about how you should be, and therefore how everyone else should be, because we're all telling each other different stories. Like we everybody's concept of what right, wrong, good, bad, what like a friendship is, what different types of relationships mean, all of that is completely different from person to person. So it's like we're living in completely different worlds until the point where we relax enough and let go of that certainty enough to like literally see the person sitting in front of us.
Absolutely. We're caught up in our own world, and or another way to phrase it is another story. And we've got a question: how do you bring your awareness back to the present when you find yourself anxious or just running with some storyline about you? When I find myself feeling anxious, lately I've been asking myself, or I've been saying, or I guess I've been making a comment about it when I notice it, and I'm just like, I could, I could be lost in the story or not, because if I'm making the story, then I can change it. I can stop it. I can put it down. If but when I find myself in moments where I don't make that kind of comment to myself, I I try to look at something like physical around me. Like I am um there's been some structural changes at work, and some people have been laid off, and some people have taken new positions, and so there's a lot of changes, and so there is a feeling of, oh no, you know, am I am I okay? Is my job on the line? You know, I have a new person that I'm working with. Are they going to like my work style? Am I going to like theirs? Is there going to be any rifts? And so in that situation that I'm actually living through right now, I tell myself I just don't know. I just don't know. And that is what brings me back, is that no matter how convincing my story is, I just don't know that it's true. No matter how anxious I feel, I don't know if I have a reason to be anxious. Like I just don't know if I'm understanding the situation fully. And I can't, because my perspective is always going to be limited, because it's only from my experience, and there are multiple contributing factors. So what I remind myself when that feeling of insecurity about job security in particular comes up for me is, I'm not fired right now. I'm not getting a written I'm not getting any disciplinary action right now. No one has said anything about the work quality at all. These are pure assumptions, and what I can do is focus on one task. All of my responsibilities are still the same, regardless of all the changes at work. And so, despite everything changing around me, my options at work are pretty much the same. So it really does me no good and no one else for me to worry about the potential, the hypothetical that I don't even know will happen, that I don't even know is even accurate hypothetical. And by accurate, I mean, is this a hypothetical that is likely to happen, or is it so far from what could happen that it is just a living nightmare that I don't have to stay in? Um, so I get back to processing invoices, working on Excel workbooks. I'm focusing on one task, despite all of my stories, despite all of my insecurities and feelings about the changes that I'm living through. I get to decide where my focus is, where my attention is, and where my attention is where my priority is. And is my priority on the hypothetical that could happen, or is my priority on the actual responsibility that I have in front of me right now? That if I focus on that, that's gonna help reduce the chance of being fired, of having someone be upset with my quality of work because I'm actually doing the work versus being worried about how the completed work might be perceived later.
It's like either you do something about it in that moment if you can, or you let it go. Because I think we carry the weight of our anxious thoughts constantly with us. And for me personally, like I'll get anxious about things and it'll be like 2 in the morning and I can't do anything about whatever it is that I'm anxious about at that point. And so yeah, like what you said, Amanda, it comes like coming back to the physical space in front of you and grounding yourself in the reality that yeah, I don't know if this is going to happen. I can't predict the future, and I don't know what that would mean for my life at the same time. Like even if you were to get laid off, maybe you'll get an even better job. Maybe you get a worse job though. That's also on the table. All of that is possible, but even if that were to be the case, it's not like you are stuck with any one decision or any one outcome. You're never stuck anywhere in life. You always have the opportunity to, on a moment to moment basis, like steer your steer your ship in a different direction. And so for me, a lot of the time when I get anxious too, it's there's there's a temptation for me to want to run away, and I'll notice like when I am feeling a little more anxious. This is kind of how I was feeling yesterday. I was in like a really weird mental space and I was like just looking for distraction. I was picking up my phone constantly. I was jumping from one task to another and like not getting anything done and feeling just very frazzled and crazy. So for me, something that helps a lot when I'm in that state is my yoga practice, is taking a second to sit and go internally. And I'm not saying that everybody has to do that. I think, everybody has different ways that they can work through those feelings. Um, I used to think it was doing things that would help quiet those anxious thoughts or just allow me to feel more at peace within myself. But I found that silence and just taking time to be with myself always helps me move through these things. And yeah, just coming back to the moment. The breath is a great anchor for that. And our breath is so powerful. It can influence our mood. It has such a central role in just the way that our body works in general. So for me, like learning that slowing down the breath activates the parasympathetic nervous system. Down, I can't fucking say that word. But yeah, it's like if you lengthen your exhale longer than your inhale, that's like a hack. And it really does work. It really does work. So there are certain things that you can do, but also recognizing that the feelings that you're feeling aren't wrong. Like you don't need to get rid of them. And And I think that's often what keeps them around at the same time is thinking, "Oh no, I shouldn't be feeling this. Oh, what do I gotta do? I gotta escape this feeling." Like being able to sit with it and be like, "No, this feeling is okay. Like I'm gonna tune in and listen to myself and work through it." And so that always helps for me. Um, I think we had another question in the chat here, Amanda.
We
Uh,
did from Ben.
oh yes, is there anything wrong with wanting to contribute to the greater good? I'll hand this off to you first, Amanda.
You are so generous, madam. No, but I love it. I love it. Bring it on. Bring it on. I'm ready. Um, is there anything wrong? Is the portion of the question I'd like to stop on because that's pure opinion. And so, is there anything wrong? There always can be if I decide it's wrong. And to think about this question from without the opinion, you know, like there's a desire to want to contribute, to share, to connect, and so when I eliminate thinking about like what this greater good could be, which will be different from everyone's opinion, and when I let go of what could be wrong, which again is based on everyone's opinion, so we'd have no identical answers. They may be similar, but there'd be no identical answers on what is wrong and what's going to be the greater good. And but I can focus on, I can contribute, and I'm always contributing. I was thinking about this, I used to describe myself as a type A personality, very much go getter, self starter, all those things. And I had a tendency to perpetually be in motion. Doing nothing was not my bag. And I never liked it because I was obsessed with the idea of productivity, success. And the idea of doing nothing was considered, in my opinion, and the story that we've heard often is laziness. And I'm more so appreciating how the pauses in speech can be just as impactful or more, or you can feel the impact of a pause in activity. And a pause in a speech can add more weight to what you say next, or can add weight to what you've just said. And having a pause in your activity is a choice, it is a contribution. Doing nothing is not the way that I used to think about it. Doing nothing is something that is a contribution. And so I am continuously participating and contributing to the moment that I am and the moment that I share with others. And so I can pay attention to my contributions because I'm always contributing, whether I am saying something or not. You think about this example. You're at dinner and one person is talking a lot and one person says nothing to the group. That person who says nothing is contributing something to the group, contributing to that experience just as much as the person who is speaking and is not taking a breath between words. Everyone is always participating. And so when I think of greater good, that is just for me, it's up for debate. And that we can talk about endlessly. But when I take a look and I look at what I've been contributing, I can see when I contribute and I'm trying to get something out of it. Like going to work, I used to want to be the employee of the month. So what I contributed was being there early, staying late, working harder, and I wasn't making those contributions for everyone else. I was making those contributions for my direct benefit. And so I'm just taking a closer look at how I'm contributing already and why, where those contributions are motivated, where are they coming from, is where my focus is, because I can't change the world in the way that I thought I used to, and I can't control anyone else, but I can pay attention to the ways that I contribute because I'm always contributing.
You can't know what your impact is. You can't know what your contribution is. Um, so it's really just about your intention in every moment. Like, and that's what I've been focusing on because people can perceive you in all sorts of different ways, and it can be hard to not let that get to you, because you could be the most well-meaning person. And I've experienced this, even recently with certain friendships in my life where I have just been prioritizing myself and my own experience and being responsible for my own emotions and not expecting a lot out of everybody else. Um but also like not sugarcoating that to people, like not telling them that I'm gonna do things that I don't think I want to do, or like um I think at the end of the day, like being responsible for yourself is the biggest way that you contribute to whatever. Yeah, it's like whatever you're seeing as the greater good isn't the greater good. The greater good is just people feeling a little bit more free in themselves, I would say. Or not even that. You can't even say with certainty what that is. Um, but I know what's good for my experience, and that's just to relax a little bit, take myself a little bit less seriously, and to some people, I look like an asshole for that. So to some people, I'm selfish, and they might have a negative reaction to me, but at the end of the day, I might be reflecting back to them something that they need to look at within themselves. And I can't say with certainty that I'm doing that or anything. Like, I don't want to get on my high horse and be like, I'm just teaching you a lesson. But it's like, um, contributing to the greater good isn't just abiding by your concept of what a good person is, just always being kind and nice. Because if you carry that out too far, it doesn't look very nice. Like if you over coddle somebody, or like you do everything for them because you think that's what's best for them, and you're like, oh, I know how to do this, let me do it for you so that it's good, so that you are in the best possible situation. You're kind of screwing them over, because then they never learn how to take care of themselves. And I think ultimately that's what people want, is they want to have faith in themselves, and they want to feel somewhat at peace with their life. And and you can't help anybody get there. The only way that you can do that is embody that within yourself, and not judging yourself, not taking yourself so seriously, but also owning your shit and not putting it on other people. That's, I feel like, the best way to just relax and to like be an example for other people about how they could be living. And it's not about you need to live like me, but I think there is a gravity to somebody who is just at peace and free with themselves. And from my experience being around people at the dualistic retreat, like that felt like heaven, because everybody was just doing it for themselves and being themselves fully, and not expecting themselves or anyone else to be a certain way. And that ended up being what's best for everybody in that scenario.
Yeah, because you're absolutely right. Thinking you're doing something for the greater good, you might be thinking you have a duty or a responsibility to other people, and the only responsibility you have, truly, at least from my perspective, in this moment, is a responsibility to your experience and your feelings, your day to day, your moment to moment. That is your responsibility, and I think that is reminding me of that when you're talking about, like, you want to be the change. And it reminds me of the quote, be the change you wish to see in the world. And the way that my mind interprets that now is be the freedom you wish you saw in the world. Because so many people think, oh, I want change, but what do you want change from? You want change from the limits that you think that are there. You want change from, this oppressive system, or you want to change the culture. You want to change, humanity's, interactions with each others on local, state, federal, and global levels. It's like, really what I'm hearing is that it's not that people want change, people want freedom, but nobody gives you that freedom if you're the person that's chaining yourself up. No one can give you that prison. No one can give you that freedom if you're creating the prison, if you are that prison for yourself. So when I hear be the change, I'm hearing be the freedom. Be the freedom that someone thinks isn't there. Because there are things that I have done that I did not know I could do. There was no example. So sometimes people say, like, I wish um, I didn't know I could do that because I never saw an example of that. And it's like, well, what about all those first people? The first two, the first I don't, I guess like the first woman to go for a job in an industry that's predominantly men. You know, that woman in this example had no examples before her. Is did she need someone to lay out a path for her to say, oh, now you can do this? And no, it's that it doesn't always have to be a full blown invitation for you to experience something. You create it. And so I want to make sure that, you know, when I think about where am I going to go, it's not where is there a path that seems like I want to take it. I'm like, what do I feel like doing? Is there a path? Cool. If there isn't, is there a way we can get through anyways? Is there a way that we can put on our construction hats and lay out some cement and make a path for us? Because just because you don't see a pathway there doesn't mean it won't be. And that's why I like comparing myself to a bridge. It's like I'm not looking for bridges. I am the bridge. I am the bridge between where I'm at and where I could be. And it's not that I need to find a bridge or be that bridge. It's just that I always have the ability to create anything. And even if I don't know exactly how, that doesn't mean that I'm not curious, and it doesn't mean that the potential is not there. And so the a few weekends ago I saw a Chris Angel show, and watching him blew my mind because I don't want I don't know what I saw. Let's start there. I don't know what I saw. And I don't want to confirm. Like I don't want to confirm anything because I love that there's just a possibility that I think that there's a possibility that I could levitate 20 feet in the air. You know, that I could teleport. Or, you know, like I just love that there's a possibility. And it's like, you know, and why can't I have fun just running in a direction of potential or running in a potential of a possibility. Even if we don't get there, I'm enjoying the process because I am the process. And years ago, the example that I liked to reference to myself was Kobe Bryant, and and he never thought of his practice, or I guess he didn't appear to think of his practices as work. He loved the whole process of of playing basketball, of being on the court, of playing with his teammates, of making the shots. And he enjoyed the process, and in a few interviews he defines himself like as the process. It's not just the championships and the rings and the gold and the checks later. He enjoys every step and he is present in each step because it's more than just getting to a destination. He is the journey. And so that's how I like to think about it, at least, you know, but in a different way. Because now I don't think about it like, oh, we can have a goal, and where the destination to the goal. It's also like I don't care if we meet the goal. That's the different part, because I'm changing as I'm moving in a direction, and so as I'm changing, I can also change where I'm pointing my attention to. So getting to a certain place isn't required anymore. Things don't have to be so black and white. I'm enjoying all the shades of gray.
We just habitually hyperfixate on this little puppet, this little one part of the situation, of the scenario. It's like it's me becoming this other thing that's not me. But and it's so hard because I can recognize that it's all me. Like I am the scenario that's unfolding. I'm not just the cells that make up Jackie's body. Like I go far beyond that, and there's a larger intelligence sort of playing out that I'm a part of. I am a part of the larger unfolding that's happening of whatever is happening, and I have a very specific way of how I think that's supposed to go. And it might not be Like, I don't know. I think it can be very distorted the more that you're focusing on yourself. But I think once you start to let go of any certainty about who you are or what direction you feel like you should go, you begin to tap into the larger intelligence at play. And so you kind of start to get a feel for your role or the direction that you're naturally being pulled. And it's like how cells in the body have their own specializations. I think that's what people find when they let go of an idea of what they're supposed to be doing, then they just start naturally doing what they do, like what comes naturally to them. And I think that's when you see somebody really excel and like really sink themselves into all parts of the process, they they become successful because they're just allowing themselves to fully embody what they are without trying to judge themselves into being something else. And so surrendering is really the best way that are able to find your direction. That's at least how I've been navigating my life recently, because there was a point in time where it's like, why even do anything? Why try to change anything if everything is okay as it is? Everything is perfect, everything is unfolding as it should be. Why do anything? But like you said, Amanda, like doing nothing is still doing something. So you might as well switch it up every once in a while. And it's okay to do nothing. Like, in fact, it's necessary sometimes to just sit back and chill and relax. And that's a huge part of health. And like, you need to fill your cup before you can share any of your water with anyone else, before you can fill anyone else's cup, before you can do anything that you would deem as like productive or beneficial to others. But um yeah, so it's like there's no reason to do anything specifically, but there's also no reason not to. And if something is calling to you, you might as well just try it out and see how it goes. And like I said before, like you're not getting stuck on any one path. At any point you can choose to pivot and go in a different direction, and that's just intelligence playing out. There's no judgment there. It's just, if something doesn't feel right, you can change it. And I think you put a question up and I just completely ignored it. So
Oh, no, it's all good. It's all good. Burrito Queen was mentioning, this is what I'm having trouble embodying right now. I'm not present enough in my day to day to really create my reality how I truly want it to be. And she followed up with, that's true too. I think that I'm at the step where I'm okay with going at my own pace, even though I know that there is a level of presence I haven't mastered yet. And in both of these, there are two stories about how a bar is not being met. And in the first one, I'm not present enough. And in the second one, there's a level I haven't mastered yet. And in both of those situations, you're creating the bar that you're not meeting. And and you don't know that that's true. You just don't know, because when I don't know what being present enough, and I appreciate my moments where I am not present. And the example I'll give is, there was a time, and it will happen again, and it has happened many times, but I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to work. I didn't want to volunteer with DU. I didn't want to join groups. I didn't want to talk to my friends. I didn't want to talk to family. I didn't want to do anything. I just was feeling like bleh. And I was just scrolling. I was doom scrolling, and I was judging the doom scrolling as I was doing it. And I'm just like, I don't want to do anything. This is so unproductive. I don't know why I'm doing this. Like, what's my problem? Like, what's going on? And I'm just doom scrolling for hours, at least 2 hours, bare minimum 2 hours. We're doom scrolling. And then I encountered a video of Jim Carrey speaking at a commencement graduation ceremony. And as he's talking, I'm thinking, you know, I would love to have Jim Carrey as a guest, but he doesn't have a online presence. So how can I get in contact with him to even ask him if he would consider being a guest on the Dualistic Unity podcast? And then I thought, as I'm watching that video of him at a college, the college booked him. If they booked him once, they might know who to contact to book him again for another speaking engagement, which means that they could be the bridge to Jim Carrey. That is not an email, that is not a phone number, that is not anything. And I would have never came up with that idea, or at least the way that I came up with that idea was being unproductive, was doom scrolling, was doing what I was judging as I was doing it. And yet that inspired the most out of the box idea, and I found a way to reach out to the college, and I got the information for a his old media company, or his old public relations company. And I just thought, like, man, if I had judged myself or judged doom scrolling and then I made a rule like we're not allowed to doom scroll, I might not have encountered that out of the box idea to reach Jim Carrey or to reach another celebrity that seems unreachable, And so, you are the judge. And so you can judge what you're doing. You can judge and say you're not being present. You can judge and say that you are not doing whatever. You're not meeting some bar, but you don't know. You don't know. I didn't know. I was literally judging myself, and what I was judging led to what I would call a productive result. But it was my opinion that wasn't required. And I like the example that Ray gives in some of his videos, which is anything that you can do with self-judgment, you can also do without self-judgment. There is nothing in your life that you've ever done that you've judged yourself for that you had to. That judgment was completely optional. Um, and so when you think about that, it is a kick in the teeth. You're like, okay, so I learned how to boil a pot of rice, and I didn't have to burn my hand every time I burned the rice. Interesting.
It's like we tell ourselves that we're doing something wrong just to feel like we know what's going on. And in reality, like, we don't. You could be telling yourself, girl, good job for you doom scrolled so much today. Like, that's amazing, queen. Like, you're you're making strides out here. And it's, yeah, like, you can't say what's productive versus not because you don't know the way that your life is going to unfold. I was doom scrolling when I found Dualistic Unity, and now I'm a co-host. So, like, I had no idea that was going to happen, and I'm sure I was judging myself when I was scrolling up until I found that video. And so it's always a choice of settling on the certainty of where you are and choosing to judge yourself. Um, but it's also, you said that you haven't mastered presence yet, and to me, I just don't think that's a thing. I don't think that's a thing at all. I don't think you can master presence. I mean, you are the present. So you already are a master of the present because you don't exist anywhere else. You're always present. And it's what you do with that presence, I think, that we deem as being more or less present. But you're always present, no matter whether you like it or not. And for me, I just think about, like, in my yoga training, when we're all practicing or meditating or whatever, um, there's there's still like a voice in the back of my head that wants to, like, compare our practices and is like, am I going deeper, or is this person going deeper than me? Are they, like, you can't quantify how deeply somebody is meditating or how present they are or how in touch with the moment they are. And you can't say the same thing for yourself either. And I think as long as you're trying to reach that point, you're taking yourself out of it because you're like, oh, like, you're there until you have the thought, like, am I doing it? And once that thought is there, then you're not present. So I would say it's almost like almost an irrelevant question to ask. Like, am I present enough? Um, all that you can do. It's not even really a question. It's just a shift in your focus. I would say outward, outward, whatever that means. Um, for me, like it's just recognizing on a moment to moment basis. I don't know. And for me, that snaps me back whenever I'm like in a conversation and I feel myself trailing off. It's like, oh yeah, I don't know. Back to the present. But also, if you were always present, you wouldn't really have any insights to share. You wouldn't be able to, I don't know, relate to other people who are having the human experience of having a voice in their head and being distracted by it and moving, away from yourself and then back to yourself. It would be really boring, honestly. Like the reason that we're able to appreciate the value of being present and really sinking into the moment is because we experience the other end of that spectrum and being in the chaos of our mind and getting carried off to faraway lands that don't exist. um, so like coming back to the moment feels very like a breath of fresh air after that experience. But like if you're always breathing fresh air, you don't even notice it anymore, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Like being nose blind, you smell the fragrances in your apartment so frequently that you can develop what they call nose blindness because someone who's never been to your apartment before walks in and is like, did you buy bananas recently? And they're like smelling like an old banana peel. And you're like, I did. How do you know? And they're like, I can smell the peel, and that is, and we develop blindness, or what is it? Like things are in our peripheral, or not the peripheral, but in our blind spot. Like when you're driving, like you just you won't be able to see everything, and you certainly won't be able to see what's in front of you if you're lost in the idea of what's in front of you. So in the comments, Burrito Queen mentioned, but my ego thinks a lot about the future or past a lot. And it's like, yeah, it can always do that. Like that option is always on the table. It's not about deleting the past or the future as an option. It's just you can think about the past and you can't think about the future or not. It's crazy. It's, and I say that it's crazy because in my head I wanted it to be so complicated. I i spent thousands of dollars on personal development courses. I've read dozens of books on self-help and personal development, and trying to, self mastery. If you can master yourself, you can master anything. And I got all caught up in all of that. And I was one of those people like, what do you do for fun? I work on myself for fun. I am trying to be my best self, thinking I'm all high and mighty on my soapbox. And there is, and it never needed to be that I had to learn an equation. If I learn this skill, then I'll be happy. If I stop doing this, then I'll be happy. If I stop thinking about the past and the future, then I'll be present. Life is not an if then equation. It's as simple as I could do that or not. And as much as I wanted it to be complicated, it's because I'd rather the environment and the world and reality and life itself to be this mystery, this thing that I'm at the mercy of, because I'd rather call myself helpless than be responsible for my reality. I'd rather pretend that I can't do something than realize I could do it, and I could do it in an infinite amount of ways, because it feels, or I guess it felt easier to just say life is hard. Is it hard, or do I just believe that it's hard? Because there are moments that to some people
seem easy and some moments that seem hard, like us starting this live. Like I absolutely felt nervous and insecure, and I was feeling anxiety, and I was just like, oh my goodness, we're gonna have the audio sounds and that's gonna be distracting. And it's like, I don't know any of that. So even if even if I don't get to a, or I could torture myself or not, I could think about the past or not, even if I don't do that, it is just, I don't know. I just don't know. I am assuming how I'm going to be perceived. I am assuming how it's going to be received. And I don't know that, and it is not my responsibility to think about, you know, to think about what I'm doing, so much so that I'm not actually doing anything besides thinking about what I'm not doing right.
That is oh too familiar for me. Just thinking and thinking about, but am I on the right path? Am I doing the right thing? Meanwhile, I'm doing nothing. Meanwhile, I'm doom scrolling. Which, that I can't settle on a certainty with where that would go. Um, but I'm thinking about, because I used to work with kids and I would do behavior therapy, and I'm thinking about thoughts, and like just thoughts that are like worried about the future or the past, is like a kid who's throwing a tantrum for attention. And like your thought is there, loud and clear, and you can you can be aware of that thought, but you don't have to feed it. You don't have to go up to it and be like, "Oh my god, is this true?" Like, because the more attention that you give to that thought, or like to the I guess child in the situation that's throwing a tantrum, the more likely they're going to throw a tantrum again. They're going to learn that that's a strategy that makes me feel better. That's what gives me that attention or that certainty that I want. And so it's not about like making sure that those thoughts they go away forever. It's just about not feeding them with your attention, like not taking them seriously. Um, you can always, like, I constantly get caught up in thinking about the past and future, just because I built that habit for 23 years of my life of hyperfixating on where I'm going. And so it's gonna inevitably keep happening, but it's happening less and less the less I worry about it happening. Because like if I'm very clear for a while, and then I think, oh my god, I'm doing so good about not thinking about the past and the future, that will trigger thoughts about the past and the future. Or if those thoughts come up and I'm like, oh, these are supposed to be gone, that's reinforcing them. That's telling myself that I'm not doing something right in the present. And so it just comes down to chilling out. Like you don't have to reach a point where your mind is clear. And in fact, thinking that you can or that you should is what's going to keep your mind from being clear. Totally. Um, what did Jazz say? The illusion of time is perceived, and thus the ego. Yes. Yeah. It's like without projecting ourselves into the past or the future, we're only ever just the present moment, and it's not even certain what that is. Like, you can't say I'm a human being and I'm this old if you're just right now. You're just awareness perceiving whatever it is that's happening. um, I think I might have cut out. Did I freeze?
I I think I froze. I don't know. I don't know. But are, yeah, either way, we're not going to worry about it, because
We're back.
this is why I love the lives, because you get to see in real time the another shade of gray. You know, it's people have so many expectations. You know, the other day someone told me, you know, they think that I don't feel insecurities, or, and I'm like, that's fantastic. If only that were true. If only that were true. And it's just because it's you want to think that you're the only one that goes through it, because you want to think that something is wrong with you. But there isn't anything wrong with us. It's just an old scary story that we keep telling ourselves on repeat. And we just don't know. It's just an assumption, and we don't have to give that story the weight that we do. You know, like Jazz had said, you know, we don't have to give that illusion the weight, but we do, because we hold on to it, and the weight comes from holding on and thinking that it's true, or holding on and thinking that it means something about you, holding on and thinking that it means something about you in relation to other people. And you don't have to hold on to that at all. You can just let that go. And it's not let it go and then it gets deleted and it's gone into the ether and you'll never see that story again. It's that you can let it go anytime you realize you're holding on. That's it. Because it really, for me, it feels like it can be that simple, that as soon as I notice I'm getting caught up and I want to ask myself the question, am I caught up in a story? Instead of answering yes, I can just say no. No, I'm not caught up in a story, because by my own definition, if I'm caught up in the story, that means I'm lost. I'm not, there's no space to be aware of being lost in the story, because if I'm lost in the story, I'm so lost in the story that all that exists is the story. So if I have enough space between me and the story to ask, am I lost? That in itself is my evidence that no, we are not lost in that story, because we're asking ourselves. And if we're asking, it means that we're not in that story. You're asking about the story. Isn't that funny? If I'm asking about the story, then in that moment I'm not in it.
So funny. We're playing hide and seek with ourselves. You know, like we're where we are, and then we're wondering, am I in the right place? And then we're not there. It's just so interesting. But I think we're coming up on the hour mark here, so I think we might have to call it. Um, Thank you all for joining us for this episode of Do You Real. Thank you for all the amazing questions. Shout out to you, Burrito Queen, for the questions today. I hope we were able to shed some light on um, on those topics. And we'll be back next Friday, same time, for another episode of Do You Real. And until then, just keep on keeping on. You're doing great. You're doing what you're doing.
Absolutely. Another fantastic chat, Jackie. I love it. And you're absolutely right. We will be doing another live next Friday, but I will be at the Netherlands retreat. And so if we think we have connection issues in the same country, I don't even want to know what the connection issues are going to look like or what they could look like. So buckle up, everybody. I make no promises. And but it was a lot of fun, and thank you so much, everybody, for the questions. Love you all so much, and we'll see you in a week. Bye.